Hey y'all, welcome to Art of the Budget. My name's Nicole. My pronouns are she and her, and I live in the Pacific Northwest on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish nations. And here we are, December 2021, budget reconciliation. It is New Year's Eve, and as you can see, I'm all dolled up and going out on the town tonight. That is a joke. I am not going anywhere. I am balancing my budget so I can end this year feeling good. December was a wild month. I was over in almost every category, and I am coming into this video honestly not knowing how exactly I'm going to reconcile this. I'm not an accountant, and like sometimes, any software I assume, but especially every dollar is a little clunky. I feel like this might be a situation where if I could get to the point where I understood how YNAB worked, like it could serve me in this situation. But anyway, let's get into it. Right now, after going through and reconciling everything, and by reconciling, what I mean is in the Every Dollar budget and my budget plan, I share with you every month what I planned to spend or bring in or whatever in each category. And then I go through and I actually change it. So for example, I planned around $4,000 of income, base income, and I actually received $4,246.76. So I actually got this money last month, and then I budgeted off of it and used it this month. I do always kind of round down though, because I like to have a buffer. And that's maybe weird. That's just a little game that I play with myself. But anyway, that is what I mean by reconciling. So then everything I spent, I planned to spend $150 in this sharing my income category, and I actually spent $173.72. So I basically go and change every planned to match the actual like spent category. And that, of course, I start with the plan giving me an every dollar budget, and then when I reconcile, when I change every planned area to match the spent or received area, and then I get whatever. Best months are, this is extra money to allocate. In this case, I'm almost $5,000 over budget. All right, so if you were tracking this month at all, which like no worries if you weren't, I was starting mid-month with $5,000 over budget. So you can see I recouped a little here and there. So despite being almost over in every category, thankfully I brought in some extra income. Brought in a little extra here because I always just round down, so I kind of start with knowing I'll have a little bit of cushion. I got a reimbursement for travel from earlier, like from September. That was $73.92. I got a little bit of interest income. I got a Christmas gift of cash, and I got some miscellaneous income. This was $500 for my old car and $647 from Rakuten. So that was pretty cool. And so that brought me up to just over $5,000 of income to begin with. All right, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. Sharing my income last month, I had to reconcile and I usually try to spend anything I didn't spend in this category. In my last budget check-in, I didn't mention, but I had extra here. And so I went in and I did some sharing of income with a couple of businesses that were affected by a fire. There's a big fire in my town, a building with a lot of small businesses, and someone's apartment burned down a week or two before Christmas. So I had not had the brain space to go in and support those GoFundMes to support those local businesses. One of them is Community Print, which I'm a huge fan of and have been a patron of, and I just love them so much. So anyway, last thing I did this month was go in and share some income with some of these businesses. Okay, so I did not do that last month because I was freaking out because my car had just blown up. But when I looked at my budget for the year, I realized that I really wanted to even kind of though I would have to cover it somehow out of my budget, if that makes sense. Gosh, that doesn't really make sense. Anyway, I wanted to try to get to a certain number for my full year of giving. It's not a ton of money in the scheme of things, but for me, it's a good amount of money, and I wanted to get to that number. So I'm hoping I will. We'll see. 2% for art. I was over a little there. I usually plan 60 and I planned 99. I spent 99.35. Other areas that I was over, well, I was not over in saving, that's for sure. My investment went out. My Roth IRA contribution went out as normal. Household stuff was pretty spot on. Electric was a little over, but that does happen in December often. Groceries. I had planned $250 for groceries and I spent almost $400. On what I really couldn't even tell you. On restaurants, I had planned 100 and I spent 225. Not really shocking to me. I know I did go out a little more often, and I would say worth it. You know, like I remember all of these dollars I spent, and I enjoyed myself. Whereas this was just, again, being pretty disorganized. I feel like that was the trend in November as well. Just being disorganized. I don't really know what I spent that on, but I'm happy that I nourished myself and I got myself through, and that's what matters. Going down to gas, again, I was over. I had planned for 100 and I spent 166. I did spend some gas money on my rental car while I was traveling, and I also was filling up this big old truck that my friend was graciously lending me. So not surprised at all that I was a little bit over there. Again, just really happy to have had access to those cars while I was looking for mine and while I was traveling. Auto insurance was over. I'd planned for 100, but I had to increase that because I got this new to me car and it is financed, so I had to increase the insurance. Going on down, yeah, I guess those are the big things. Those are the highlights. Now looking at sinking funds, what I went ahead and did was I adjusted these all except for the car one, so that I ended up with 0. So in the cat fund, I spent $383 on my cats, and that was, you know, that's not for their food, that's up higher, and that was on budget, but this is for visits and medicine. And yeah, they cost me a lot of money, but well worth it. We'll always happily spend that money. But I did a weird thing. I'm always trying to keep this at about $1,000, and that's numero uno priority for me in January, is to get that, is basically to put every single cent towards that. But in December, I basically made this 0. So I had to add $132.71 where I had planned $250. Hopefully that makes sense. And then upcoming travel, I had some, of course, in all of these accounts, like, right, there was money already in there, and this is what I was planning to add. So I guess that's what I'm saying. I adjusted it. So I just added enough to zero those out. I had planned to add 90 to the travel, but I was so over. I spent almost $700 in travel. And some of that was for, honestly, I have to think about that. I mean, there was additional travel, but that's a lot of money, $700. It's mostly for food. Maybe just 200 of it is for 200 of it is for hotel and the extra bus and train I had to take. A little over 200 of it was for the pet sitter, and so that leaves about $300 that was like incidental stuff. So a little more than I would have liked, but I was in this extended travel. So yeah, I don't love it, but like I understand it, you know. And hopefully I'll get a little bit of that reimbursed by my credit card. We'll see. Okay, so, but with $477.85 added, that zeroes out. Now we're looking at the remaining amount. So that's what it's in each of these funds. I tried already. I started the month trying to channel as much as possible to this car upkeep and replacement. So I've got almost $2,600 there to go towards this red. And then I'm going to also try to add like this money from important stuff, this $10 from serotonin boost. It would definitely boost my serotonin to like not have this debt. So I'm also going to take the rest of that from my emergency fund, which was already somewhat depleted. Where are you, emergency fund? It was, it's at about $8,500. So I'm going to take the rest from there, and that's one of my goals for next month, which I need to get that video up. My goals for next year to get that emergency fund back up to $10,000. So I'd say $10,000, but there is about a month of pay floating around in my checking account because I'm 1 month ahead. So yeah, that is something that I don't totally understand, but but it is happening. It is always happening. So anyway, I am going to stop recording, do all the adjustments I need to do. Basically, I added the car here as a debt, and I had planned 0, but then I paid $5,000. So I'm going to figure out how to make this make sense. I don't exactly know how, but I'll be right back and I'll tell you what I did. Okay, I'm back, and this is how I handled it. Now, if anyone out there is an EveryDollar user and has an idea of a better way I could do this, or if you just see any flaws in my logic, let me know, please, because yeah, this is a kind of a hairy situation. So my goal is to make up this $4,896.84 by taking it from, this is what I did. There was this $10 in serotonin boost, so I took it away as car down payment. Important stuff, this $68.27, I took it away as car down payment. This car upkeep and replacement, everything that was not used for other stuff, I took it away as car down payment. And then the remainder of that added up to $2,668.40. The remainder of this $48.96.84, this is like number salad, I took from my emergency fund, and you can see again I took it away as car down payment. And then I created this income, and I'm going to have to drag this, so this is that total amount. I'm going to have to drag that to miscellaneous income. And then fix this to be, yep. Now it's an EveryDollar budget. It feels a little odd to me because it kind of inflates this income, but I couldn't figure out a better way to like do the accounting so that it made sense later. So now I know my emergency fund is almost down to $6,000, which look, I'm grateful for, but that's going to be something I need to be working back to. It took me so long to get to 10,000. And yeah, it'll feel good to get back there. And then I'm just going to scroll down to my sinking funds. And so for anyone who's just curious, I guess, for me, having several sinking funds, some people just have one pot or they just have one emergency fund and they just increase it. But I like to have, I kind of think of my sinking funds as my emergency funds in front of my emergency fund. And in a situation like this, it's maybe a little bit silly because I still have, almost $2,000 in this down payment category, and maybe I should just shift that to my emergency fund. And obviously, if I had an emergency that cost $8,000, that is exactly what I would do. But for me, it just feels nice to like still be working towards this goal. In the beginning of 2020, or in the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, I had gotten pretty far in this goal, and I decided to use that money to actually become that extra month that floats, that fourth month of income in my emergency fund. And so, essentially it is generic emergency fund, but it feels nice to keep it earmarked for this particular task, even though it's so slow going. um, and like tech fund, like I could move this 174 over, but actually I know from last year where I didn't really plan to have a tech fund that when this goes to zero is when your phone falls in the toilet or breaks or whatever. So at the end of the day, this money would get used for whatever it needs to get used for. Earmarking it is just something that works for my brain, and sometimes it's just easier for me to have that money earmarked when I need to spend it, like say if I need to buy a new phone. And other times it just, again, is like sort of a serotonin boost. It just feels nice to know I'm working towards this goal, even though I might be behind in another goal. I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and it's like do whatever works for you and makes you feel like less depressed about spending your money on, like when it's on things that are not ideal, or when you overspend or whatever. Obviously our money is there to serve us. But anyway, that is it for me for December 2021. It is an every dollar budget, and I am out. See you in the next video.